I'm here at Liverpool Comic-Con with Gil Bellows, his first ever Comic-Con.
Yes, it is. Hello, everyone.
And how are you enjoying it so far?
I am enjoying it very much. I've seen some old friends. I'm getting to meet, these incredibly positive, very happy people coming from all over the world to say hi and, ask questions, take pictures, and it's been very sweet so far.
And we're just about to go on stage and do his first panel as well. So welcome to the stage, Gil Bellows. Is this working?
Hello. I know that song.
How often do you actually get that song stuck in your head?
The first time I saw the cut or the pilot and they played that song, I was like, okay, I have a feeling the song's going to be a big hit. And then I watched the pilot and I was like, I have a feeling the show might be a big hit too. So, I think within a couple of weeks, I felt like it was almost, when you anticipate the sound of your alarm in the morning, that song was kind of my alarm in the morning.
So, talking about Ally McBeal, so in case you went with that, was Ally McBeal. How did you get the role?
So, I was living in New York, and my wife actually auditioned to play the role of Ally, and she was filming a movie in Chicago, and so I helped her with the taping for the audition. And I remember we ended up getting into a fight because I told her that she did a really good job, but I didn't think she'd be right for Ally. And she didn't like that. Anyway, when they cast Callista and I knew each other from New York. We'd done a bunch of play readings together. We'd known each other for a few years and had a really good creative relationship. And when I heard that it was her, I was like, oh, okay, because I think she's one of the most talented actors on the planet. And I got a call from Jeffrey Kramer, who's the producer, and he said, we hear that you're not interested in doing television. And I said, well, when you sign up for something, you usually have to sign up for 5, 6, 7 years, and I'm not really interested in doing that. And he said, well, would you be interested in a year-to-year contract? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, and you and Callista really like each other? And I said, yeah. He said, well, the network needs you to do a chemistry read. I said, okay. So we sat in a room and they video conferenced us, and we did a couple of scenes, and we just sat there and talked and laughed. And I left, and by the time I got home, I had the job. Yeah.
And what was it like on set then? Because a lot of the characters were very, as it got further along, it became less and less serious, a lot more fantastical.
Sure, yeah. Do you remember when you were in elementary school and you had a substitute teacher, and that kind of was like the permission to do stuff that you really shouldn't be doing in a classroom? That's kind of what it was like being at work. The whole idea of the show was to keep a certain sense of tension between humor and romance alive, and in order to do that, you needed the freedom to be a little goofy, sometimes like maybe too goofy, and that's kind of it. I mean, I laughed so much every day, and to the point sometimes where I was on the floor in tears with like a very, very like sore ribs kind of laughter. It was a great experience.
So, because a lot of the dance numbers in the bathroom and things like that, were they a lot more choreographed, or did you kind of make them up as you went together?
Well, Peter McNichol, who is a genius, would make up his own kind of choreography for the show and in his dances. And then, the rest of us either had choreography or we would just freestyle.
And Billy went through quite the arc through it. How were you happy with his progression? Or was there something you'd like to see more of?
When you're in an ensemble, it's challenging to always be happy with what it is that you're being tasked to do. But I think ultimately what's most important is that you enjoy the experience of being part of the experience. And for the most part, I felt like I was easily one of the luckiest people on the planet.
And did you have any input on the way he left the show, or how do you feel about how he left?
No, I didn't, but when I felt like it was time for me to go, David Kelly, who was a real gentleman, he had me into his office and he said, sometimes when characters go on my shows, they fall out of the elevator and to their death. He said, we're going to do something really beautiful with your story. And he did. And, it was really, it was lovely.
And how long did it take you to grow out the bleached blonde hair?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was, God. Funny little story about that. My daughter Ava was born and probably was about 4 months old when I had my hair dyed blonde. And I remember coming home and taking off my baseball cap and her seeing it for the first time. And she just started laughing, like hysterically laughing. And I remember I was struck by 3 things in that experience immediately. One is that if you ever have any doubts that your children have their own brains and their own ways of thinking and their own sense of humor, that was just abundantly clear to me. Number 2 was she thinks I'm a joke. and number 3 is I wonder when I will win back her respect.
And have you yet?
It ebbs and flows. It ebbs and flows.
Does anyone have any questions about Emmett Bill before we move on? Yep.
How did you find David E. Kelly to work with? Was he very hands-on? Was he on the set a lot? Or?
David E. Kelly never pretty much came to the set, ever. The thing about David and his work is he has a great team around him who oversee the functionality of the production, so he can concentrate pretty much exclusively on just writing and telling the stories. That being said, if you were going to change an and to a but, you needed his permission. That being said, too, he is one of the greatest writers in the history of television, so getting his permission is a reasonable kind of protocol, I think.
Does that make it harder on set, or do you feel that you can't kind of?
You mean rather than improvise or and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, or just even sometimes if you feel the character would say was not instead of wasn't, or things like that.
You could ask, and if he thought it was reasonable, he would do it. But for the most part, you said what was written, and if you did that, people generally enjoyed what you did. So I think it worked out pretty well. Hi.
How was your first day on the set of Emmett Bill?
The first day?
Yes.
Okay, so the first day, let's see. I think the first day, Callista and I were like making out in a car on the Fox lot. Yeah.
That's how you keep you for many seasons.
Yeah.
Day 1 to make out with the star, and then
which was pretty funny because it's fortunately we knew each other, but I have had a couple experiences in my life where you're meeting somebody for the first time pretty much naked in bed, which is unusual but memorable. It was a great experience. It was one of those kind of experiences where we were in this beautiful creative bubble that the world just kind of fell in love with, and it was a really nice way to share this incredible creative experience and see it be met with such a wonderful response. Yeah.
And what did you think of when you first saw the dancing baby? Because back then, even for then, the technology was quite ahead of itself.
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting. The dancing baby, like, I forget about it every single time until somebody brings it up. Like, for me, it just didn't really register. Like, the things that registered to me were the cast that I got to work with and the musical guests that we got to work with. I mean, you know, whether it was, you know, Elton John or the Reverend Al Green or Tina Turner or Barry White or, you know, on and on and on. I mean, that part of it was mind-blowing. When Al Green serenaded Callista in her bed, I was sitting right beside the bed watching it. I was 5 feet away from Al Green while he was singing a song. And I was sitting there going, I can't believe that this is going on right now, you know. I mean, he was, you know, very much the soundtrack to my childhood, you know. And anyway, that part of it never got old.
Was there anyone you got starstruck by from all those that list? Because it's one of the weirdest shows that you get musical guests on a seriously dramedy.
Yeah. I mean, I would say pretty much each one. Like, I mean, you know, Barry White, when he'd come in with his crew, you're just like, this is so wild. Like, that's, you know, that's the, you know, the Godfather of love right there, you know. I mean, they were all kind of amazing, and they were so generous, and they wanted to be a part of the show. It was one of the great compliments of being a part of a little slice of TV history.
And it really was. It set up a lot of things that have come since, and I think that was when TV was really starting to become big again as well. Moving away from movies.
Yeah.
Anyone else any final question? Yeah.
We recently went to see Josh Groban.
Oh yeah.
Amazing,
Yeah, I forgot to mention Josh Groban.
Obviously, you got to work with him.
Yeah. I not only that, one of my acting teachers who became a really good friend after I finished studying, he went on to teach at the High School of Performing Arts, and Josh went there. And so there was a concert, and he said, you really got to see this kid. So I met Josh before he broke with David Foster and came on the show and did all of that. So, yeah, I mean, amazing talent.
He talked very fondly of working with everyone, was on the stage.
Yeah.
But were there any conflicts at all?
You mean on the show?
Yeah.
The only conflict that I would describe was that there was such a curiosity about the show, and there was so much energy focused on Callista's weight.
Oh, no,
you know, they were really like, the world was kind of obsessed with it, you know, and to the point where it became very, you know, it was sort of the media fell in love with the show, and then the media did everything they could to kind of like tear Callista especially apart afterwards, which was kind of awful. Like, one of our jobs, I felt like, as the show went on, was defending not only, you know, Callista, but her privacy. It was really kind of crazy. Yeah, that would be it, really. Yeah.
Alien lady?
Sorry. I'm a little bit late, so if it's been asked, I'm sorry about it.
Please don't be.
I'm really related in the show the internal songs.
Yes.
So I have constantly like songs playing in my head, just randomly popping up and then just playing, and you can't stop it. So I don't know if you ever had that experience.
I'm having it right now.
That was really amazing, and you know, like, what is like the most type of songs that usually pop in your head?
You know, it really depends. So it's funny. I don't know if any of you when you make playlists and sometimes you get really attached to certain ones. I have this sort of physical set of exercises that I like to do, especially when I'm traveling. But I like to do them every morning. It's kind of like my version of a cat waking up. Just getting the body moving and all of that. And so I play this playlist with it, and the first song in that playlist I'd never heard until about a year ago. And I'm originally from Canada, and there's this there's a band, a very iconic band that from there who plays the song called Blow It High Dough, and it's kind of like in the morning I wake up, just like back in the day it would be Von Shepherd song. Now it's Blow It High Dough. Yeah.
Anyone else have any more questions about Animate Bill before we move on? No. Okay. So next we want to talk about one of the most definitive movies of all
God,
time,
yeah.
the short. Sorry.
I just went, oh God, yeah.
The Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
How was your time on set? Can you tell us about that role, please?
Well, I mean, I guess the thing that I would say before I talk about the experience actually making it and doing it is reading the script beforehand. I've probably read 5,000 or 6,000 scripts in my life now, and that's still the best one, hands down. It's just a absolutely beautiful piece of writing. It took a really good short story and made a transcendent screenplay. Frank Darabont's adaptation, I think, is genius. And when I read it, I felt like this part is mine, and I had no business feeling that way because I had a couple of jobs in my life. I was living in New York. I had a theater company. I was getting close to some big movies, but I hadn't really done very much. And I got an audition for film, and it went really, really well. And then I got a call saying Brad Pitt was going to play the role. And then I got a call about a month later saying he can't because he's doing Interview with the Vampire and Legends of the Fall, and he couldn't fit it in. So I'll share a theory with you that I have, which is that had Brad Pitt played the role, I think the movie might have done better, in a bunch of different ways. But I don't know that it would have necessarily still been as important, if that makes any sense. Again, who knows? But
I think he did okay for himself, though.
oh yeah. No. I mean, he's a legend. But the experience of doing the movie was incredible. We did the table read at Shawshank Prison, and Frank had everybody come. And so you're sitting around the table, and Morgan's narrating the script. He should have won the Oscar for the table read. It was just, it was amazing. And, Frank was such a wonderful, nurturing, supportive guy. He let me sit and watch. I would come for a couple of weeks before I was even shooting just to, watch what everybody was doing. And I mean, it's everything, when there are things in your life that you imagine when you have dreams about what it is that you want to do and how you want to do it, and then you're actually doing it, and it exceeds your dreams, it's kind of, that was the experience.
And was the experience enriched because you were at that setting?
For sure. I mean, everything about it. I was the kid, and I'm talking to people who were in, James Whitmore. James Whitmore was, testified at the House of Un-American Activities, and was, stood up in the civil rights movement, and so. Morgan Freeman was on the Electric Company, which was this show on PBS for kids that I grew up watching. Tim Robbins was a political, brilliant actor married to Susan Sarandon. And I'm like, it was kind of, he was the dude at that time. And, all the supporting actors, Mark Ralston was in Aliens, and David Proval was in Mean Streets, and Joe Ragno, was at the Actors Studio with everybody, and, it was just kind of on and on and on, and they all would tell me stories about their journeys and their lives, and yeah, it was, every day was an education, and kind of just a magical experience.
And are you able to watch yourself on screen, or are you one of those who can't watch themselves?
I don't really like to do that for a lot of reasons, because I kind of feel like the whole experience of acting is on film and in television is really an exercise in trust. You've got to prepare yourself and do all that work. And then you trust that the director and the producers and the editors are going to, take the best of what you did and apply it to their vision of the story. That's not always the way it works out, and it can be disheartening. Plus, you have an experience making something. It's not necessarily going to be reflected in the final experience. I do some producing now as well, and if I'm acting in something that I'm producing, I'll end up seeing it a bunch of times, and I notice that I can see it differently because I'm looking at it from the point of view of the total story. If I'm just in it as an actor, I'm looking at it like, did I do a good job? Did I look good doing a good job? Why did they use that take? And that kind of stuff is, that can just mess up your day or your life.
Anyone have any questions about Shawshank before we move on from Shawshank? So next we're going to talk about your recent run on Chucky. We've got a lot of horror fans around.
Yeah.
What was it like being on set, and how is it acting with the Chucky doll?
Oh, okay. So acting with the Chucky doll is very surreal because there are sort of a number of iterations of what the Chucky doll is. There is the inanimate Chucky doll. So somebody will actually speak for Chucky, and they'll hold the doll in place, and that'll happen. There's a puppet version of the doll. There is a small person sometimes who will be Chucky, and then every once in a while there'll just be a piece of tape, and they'll say that's Chucky, and Chucky's going this way. Don Mancini, who created Chucky and has maintained and preserved that world for a long time, is a true gentleman and a great guy to work with. The cast was amazing. It's a world that I didn't really know much about until I became a part of it, and I'm very proud to be a part of it.
And how is it filming, like a lot of the gore scenes, the death scenes? Is that a very basic, a long process?
Yeah, I mean, we did a seance scene where we ended up, blood rains down on us, and then there's a fire and all. I mean, you're covered in blood for, sometimes a couple of days. It's something, for sure.
And Did you ever look back thinking that when you were a lawyer on Ally McBeal, all these years later, you'd be spending days covered in blood? Quite a trajectory.
Yeah. I mean, one of the, one of the great things about getting to do what I do is I've been really lucky in that I've got to dance around in a whole bunch of different kinds of genres and scales of stories, and I mean it's a wonderful thing to go from action to horror to comedy to romance. Like, I mean it's the reason why I wanted to do this in the first place.
Is there one genre you find harder to fall into?
No, I mean they all have their wonderful sort of qualities, and then their own challenges. It's really more like an alchemic thing, right? Like, there may be a type of cuisine that you really like, and then you go someplace and you have it, and you're like, oh, this is not what I thought this was going to be, and it can really kind of change your sense of what you thought you liked, and then you can have something where you thought you did not care for it at all, and you're like, oh my God, this might be the greatest thing I ever had. So I try to stay open to the experience on a one-on-one level,
And before we wrap up, I just want to talk about what's coming next. I know we've got the Exorcist movie you've been working on, and the new Carrie series from Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that, please.
Sure, yeah. I over the last 10 months or so, I've had the great good fortune to collaborate with the extremely talented and just wonderful Mr. Mike Flanagan, who did The Life of Chuck and Haunting of Hill House and Dr. Sleep and Black Mass and many other things. So I did for Amazon, it'll come out around Halloween, season 1 of Carrie. I'm in that, which was a great experience. And from that experience, we got on really well, and so he just cast me, and I just finished working on The Exorcist, which is a feature that he's doing with Scarlett Johansson and Lawrence Fishburne and Chiwetel Ejiofor and Diane Lane and John Leguizamo and a bunch of other great actors. So that'll come out next March, and then I've got 2 movies for Netflix coming out. One in the summer called Voicemails for Isabel, that'll come out in June with Zoe Deutsch. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. And then at Christmas time, a really, I think, funny, beautiful, romantic film called In a Holidays, which is kind of like Groundhog Day, except at Christmas. And it's Maddie Ziegler and Rob Lowe and Patton Oswalt, and there's a cameo of Adam Sandler is going to be in the movie, and yeah, it's really cool. And yeah, so a bunch of different things to look out for, and I hope you'll enjoy them as much as I enjoyed making them.
So thank you everyone for being here. And I have one last question, anybody? Yep.
You're so down to earth. You come across very grounded. What inspired you to go into acting?
Okay, so it's working.
And see.
What inspired you to become an actor?
Yeah. Okay, so I was 16 and I had an accident where I broke my femur and my hip socket. And I was in the children's hospital off and on for a few months, and they were shooting while I was there on one of my stays. They were shooting an industrial film that they were going to send to schools all over the province to tell kids, hey, don't worry if you get sick or injured, the children's hospital is a great place to go. So they wanted a real patient, and so the staff recommended me, and the director, you know, I worked with the director that day. I was in my hospital bed. They shot the scene in my room, and he said, "Hey, if I give you some more lines tomorrow, could you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So the next day we did it, and he said, "You know, you should think about doing this." So he gave me the name of an agent, and the agent gave me the name of a teacher, and the teacher took me seriously and was very supportive. And when I was graduating high school, they said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know." And they said, "Well, you should think about going to acting school." And so my girlfriend at the time sent an application in on my behalf, and it was for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I went to the audition, and I got in, and I moved down. I graduated high school and moved down to the States, and it's kind of how it came together. Yeah.
Was that a lucky break then?
Yeah, well done. I mean, that was spectacular. And in the spirit of that, it's one of my favorite show business sayings. I believe it's attributed to the late great Walter Matthau, who said, "All you need are 50 big breaks."
Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, Gil.
Yeah, thank you all.
Gil's here all weekend doing photos, autographs, and having a good old time.
Yeah.
We're going to take a group selfie with you and everybody. Hi, we've just come off stage for Gil's first ever convention panel. How was it?
It was excellent, and this gentleman right here kicked some booty.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and we're going to have a lot of fun the rest of the weekend.
You bet.